I am going to start this video with the following quote. If it's easy, everyone, and I mean everyone, will be doing this. Trust me, it's far from easy, but we'll make it happen. Let's make the end to the Lotto completely automated. Let's make sure that when we build the backend, which is the video that you are going to see now, this backend is going to allow the functions to be executed in a sequential order. This backend is going to run the entire lottery app completely automated, which means the moment I execute the backend, I run the backend, I am going to verify first the timer ran out in the current draw. And then I'm going to start executing the functions, close the draw, to get the winning numbers, to obtain the winners for that particular draw, to issue the rewards to those users or the prize to those users, and then reinitialize a completely new draw. So what we need to make sure is that when we execute those functions, we give enough time for the function that is executing to complete before we can move on onto the next function. You see what I'm going? It's a challenge because we need to understand how long it's going to take for function A to complete so then I can move on to function B. And we are doing this completely automated, meaning that the end goal on this video is to be able to run the backend, and it's just going to continue opening, closing draws, getting the winning numbers, obtaining the winner tickets, and opening a new draw. So we have nothing to do after this is set. We don't need to deal with the administration piece of opening draws manually, closing draws manually. All we have to do is just run the backend, and it's literally going to call the smart contract. It's going to call every single function that it needs to. It's going to fetch the numbers from chaining VRF. Obviously, it's done on the smart contract, but we have to invoke that function. That function isn't going to run automatically. We have to run it ourselves. The smart contract is not meant to be self-automated. We have to trigger those functions. But then the problem is, unless we manually click a button, it's not going to happen automatically. However, this is the video that we need to know how to make this happen. We are going to know how to make this happen in this video, okay? So let's cut it short. I am going to go right into the configuration details, okay? Let's go ahead and let's make this happen. So another great tutorial here. What we need to do in this particular tutorial, this is what we should expect once we finish the entire configuration, right? So let me go ahead and show you how this backend is going to look like when it's running. I am going to execute the finished product so that you can see how it's going to start over every single function, right? How it's going to start executing every single function. So I am going to run it real quick, and we're going to type node backend.js. What we should expect is the following. If the timer for a particular draw has gone all the way to 0, has finished, it should start executing the functions to close the draw. So you should see this happening right now. And one thing that I have to mention is that we need to store the value of the time, the current time on the draw, so then we have a pointer in reference in case the application stopped responding and we need to re-establish the application. We can just resume to the last time, or in this case, to the last position on the draw. How much time was left in the particular draw, and we can resume that. So in order for me to do that, I have to store the current time in Mongo database. So what I'm going to do, I am going to do a very simple integration into Mongo database to just store the time left for the draw. And this time, it's going to be constantly updated. Okay, so every second I am going to be writing into Mongo database with the new timestamp. The reason why we want to do this is not just for the backend, but also the front end. That's how I'm going to be able to display how much time is left in the front ends. And I'm going to show you one of the panels that I developed was the administration panel. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do this. I'm going to move it over here. And you can see right here that this time we are fetching this time from Mongo database. Why? What I'm going to do here, I am going to be talking to the backend, then the backend is going to make the call to Mongo database and it's going to give me those values. So then I can determine how much time is left. Where do we see this in Mongo database? I am going to show you right now. Okay, so I developed a collection, okay, that is going to be storing the time. Let me go ahead and zoom in. Okay, there we go. So what I'm going to do, I am going to be storing the time left, and this is the total time in milliseconds. So if I go and refresh right now, that time should start decreasing. Why? Because I am going to be updating this time. This time is going to be stored so then I can use that to make my calls and determine how much time is left. If I, for some reason, close the backend, right, this will stop. But then the moment I bring back the backend, it's just going to resume in the time that was left. So we don't lose the draw. In case there's an issue, we can restart the backend and the draw continues rather than closing the draw and having users not being able to, to know what the hell happened, or they were not able to participate because we closed the draw too early. So what I'm going to do here, I am going to store the time, and not only the backend, but also the front end is going to retrieve this value and it's going to display that value. And you can see that it's already decreasing. So let me go back. The moment I get this all the way to 0, I should see in this particular backend the functions executing, okay? And as a matter of fact, we're going to keep an eye on it. Let me go ahead and bring it here. And then we'll build all this. Okay, let me just put it right here. There we go. Awesome. So there's 3 minutes. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to skip. We'll take a look and see what's going to happen once it runs out, okay? Okay. We're almost done. So 9 seconds, 8 seconds left. Okay, it's about to execute the backend. We're going to see the backend executing the functions. There we go. We just finished. So what's going to happen now? The backend is going to make the calls to the smart contract and it's going to proceed to execute the closing. And you can see that we already went through the closing draw. Now, it's very important for us to understand that I need to obtain the numbers from Chainlink VRF, which means that before I can calculate the winning numbers, I need to await a little bit of time before I can go ahead and use those numbers, which means that now I am going to let the script or let the function set a timeout of, I'm going to say like 60 seconds, or in this case, 1 minute, so then we can assume that we already obtained those values and then the next function can go ahead and run. So you are going to see now that it's going to run the next function. There we go. We just ran the next function. We already went through 60 seconds. Now I am going to give another 60 seconds so then we can count the winners. Okay? Once we're done with that, we are going to have another 60 seconds and we'll go ahead and open a new draw. When I open a new draw, in the function, we are also going to reset the timer. And then once I go ahead and refresh the screen, we should see the current draw completely, move all the way to 11. So we should see the draw move to 11. And we should see now the jackpot accumulated to 11,000 because this is draw number 10. And I have a minimum jackpot pool of 1,000 tokens. So every time that no one wins the draw, I am just going to keep increasing the jackpot, okay? Let's wait for that. And once we're done with that, let's go ahead and build the function. And there we go. Awesome. Getting winners. We should be done with this. And boom. Awesome. Now we should see the backend opening a brand new draw. And you can see this is completely automated. Let's wait for that. Once we wait for that minute, we should then see the open draw executed. And then we should be able to see the update, okay? There we go. We got a brand new draw opened. There we go, complete. Awesome. Now let me go ahead and refresh the app and portal. And you are going to see that they should have changed to 11. So let me go ahead and refresh. There we go, awesome. And now you can see that we have increased the jackpot pool. And now the ending time is set for like 6 minutes and 38 seconds because I For this demonstration, I decided to put a lower time, but this will be dictated on how many milliseconds do you set in this in the backend, right? Ideally, in the smart contract is where you are going to put the end time. Right now, the smart contract, I have it to allow me to close it anytime because I want to make sure that we can practice the backend completely, okay? But once you deploy the smart contract, you know that you cannot change that. So if you are intending to put your draws in different intervals, then I would suggest you don't set a end time in the smart contract so then you can modify that as you wish, okay? Awesome. Alrighty, let's go ahead. I'm going to stop this and let's build this whole thing together, okay? With that said, I am going to bring Visual Studio Code and I already have the editor ready to go. So let me go ahead and do the following. I am going to make a file in the backend Lotto folder. As a matter of fact, I am going to clear here. And I'm going to open that folder, backend Lotto, and clear, and we're going to list. Okay, perfect. There's nothing here. Awesome. So with that said, I am going to make the first file. The first file is going to be called backend.js. Awesome. So one thing that we have to install, we have to import all the dependencies, the components, all the modules that we need to use to interact. This will include EthersJS. I am going to be using Axios to make calls into Mongo database. And by the way, if you haven't worked with Mongo database before, I am going to leave the link to an amazing tutorial that I built how to integrate Mongo database into your calls, because we have to store that timer. Right? We have to store that timer, and that will allow us to resume a draw in case the backend has abruptly, closed or has crashed or something. Anything could happen. That way allows me to resume the draw with the duration that it had. Okay. So with that said, I am going to be importing the package JSON, which includes all the dependencies. All we have to do is do npm I. Okay. And by the way, another video. If you haven't developed a backend before, I have another tutorial that allows you to learn this from 0 to hero. And you will become very familiar with how I'm doing this. Because certain sections in this tutorial, I'm just going to go very briefly because I have a video tutorial that you must see if you haven't done this before, okay? Cool. So with that said, let me do the following. I am going to create a file called package.json. Okay, and inside here, let me bring the dependencies. Okay, let me go ahead and paste the dependencies. And you are going to see that I'm going to be using Axios. I am going to be importing the dependencies for the backend so that we can run this server, this backend server. And I am also bringing an ethers. So that will be our library to interact with the blockchain. Okay, cool. So I'm going to Control S. Now what I have to do, I am going to head into the working folder and we're going to type npm I. So what's going to do is just going to look for the package JSON and it's just going to install all the dependencies on the fly. Okay, npm I. There you go. Beautiful. So we have all dependencies installed and you can see that it auto-generated that node modules. Okay, beautiful. Okay, another thing that we have to build is the interfaces. And what I was thinking is the following. I am going to build the backend timer function first. So then we start with that and you already know how you do the timer, and then we'll do the functions to make the calls to the smart contract, which is a little bit more straightforward. And if you already have experience with EthersJS, it's going to be very straightforward. But what I want to make sure that you grasp is how we do the timer, okay? All right, so let me go ahead and do the following because I have everything pre-staged and it's going to be easier and faster for us to do this tutorial. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to prepare the backend server and I'm going to go very, very brief on this one, okay? I'm not going to take too much time on this because I have a video tutorial. If you don't know how this works, I suggest you see that video. I'm going to leave the link in the description below. Okay, cool. So that being said, this is all I need to have in order for me to run that backend server. And I am going to add the following. I am going to open the server application, paste the server itself. This is the function that is going to enable the server to start listening. I'm going to Control S, and I am going to run it to make sure that everything works. Node backend. There you go. So we know everything is working 100%. Awesome. Let me Control C, and let's continue. So the first thing that we are going to do, we are going to build the function that is going to determine that the time ran out. And then if the time ran out, it's going to execute another function that is going to go over the closing. It's going to do the draw numbers. It's going to get the winners, and then it's going to execute a new opening draw. So it's going to open a new draw. Okay, so we know this works. So what I have to do now, I have to build another file, and we have to interact with Mongo database because we need to store the time left. So every second, it's going to update that time. That will be our counter. That will be the time as it's going and running out, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do another file called interfaces. I'm going to call this interfaces. And inside interfaces, we are going to import Axios, and we'll add the Mongo database dependencies. I'm going to show you how to build that particular database in the MongoDB Atlas, okay? Okay, we're importing Axios. Now I have to add the information regarding Mongo database. I am going to add two things, the API key, which I am going to be obscuring, and the URL that will be pointing to your Atlas DB location, okay? With that said, what I have to do, I am going to first build a database and a collection that we can use to talk to, okay? So let me show you how this is done. We're gonna open Mongo database. And we're basically going to do the same thing here. We're going to do name, and we're going to do time. In time, we will store those milliseconds, okay? And we will let the backend do the countdown, okay? So what I got to do here, I am going to create a new database, and let's call this Into the Lotto tutorial, okay? And then the collection, let's call this Lotto timer. Okay, and we're just gonna say create, and boom, we have that configured. Inside here, I have to do one single document, okay? This document, the name, remember what we just saw? Name is going to be interval. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this value as the pointer, so then I can obtain the information from Mongo database. And you're going to see this in NodeJS, okay? And that will be the name. And now I'm going to add another field, but this field will be an integer field, okay? I'm just gonna do the field, and this will be called time equals what? 0, okay? Beautiful. Okay, awesome. So time equals 0. So that means that when I read this value in the function, if time equals 0, that means that the timer ran out, which means that we are going to have an if and else. If time is less or equal to 0, that means that the draw has finished. Go ahead and proceed to run the function that is just going to close everything. It's going to draw the numbers and so forth, okay? So we're good here. Now I have to make sure that I use this naming in the Axios configuration so that I can write and read this particular entry. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Here, I'm going to do the following. I'm gonna go ahead and do it faster. I'm gonna show you right now. I'm gonna Control V, and we are going to build a constant called getDrawTimer. That basically what it's going to do is going to do a store the response from Axios post. It's a post request to Mongo database, which is just going to call the URL, and then it's going to add the option of finding one. What am I going to find? I am going to find what I'm going to be specifying right now. Okay, let me go ahead and paste. What I'm going to do, I am going to tell to Mongo database, hey, look in the database called Into the Lotto -tutorial. And from the data source cluster 0, if you're wondering where did I get this information, in your account, you're going to have a cluster, and by default, it's going to be cluster 0. You can change the name. I just left the default, okay? So basically, I'm going to go to the data source, cluster 0, database, Into the Lotto -tutorial, and then collection load Lotto timer, okay? And make sure that it's, because it's case sensitive, to write it the same way. And I'm just going to pass the content type, application JSON, API key, and I'm going to be passing my API key that I have over here, okay? Cool, awesome. So we have the function to get the timer, the current time value that is stored in the database. If you see, I am going to be filtering by what? By name. Name equals what? Interval. Remember what I wrote in the Mongo database itself? That's what I need to find. And then I'm going to get the values. Beautiful, right? Now I have to use the same function, but instead I'm going to be updating that entry, that time entry, okay? Now the difference here is the following. I am going to be constant store time. I am going to be creating another function called store time, which is async, and time left will be provided by the function that is going to auto run. So time left will be the value that I'm going to be subtracting 1 second, which basically that's the timer. That's what we're going to do. We're going to update that timer. We're going to update the value to Mongo database, okay? And what I'm going to do, I am going to filter the database to look for name interval, and then I am going to be updating that to time left, and that's it. We're just going to update that with the current time left. This will be generated by the backend, okay? Now that I have those two functions, I can effectively build that automation piece, okay? So we are going to be exporting this get draw timer and store timer to the backend. So I'm going to say module export, and we are going to define which ones? Get draw timer and store timer. Okay, beautiful. Control S, and we have everything safe. So we should be good here. Okay, so now let me go to the backend, and I have to import those because we just exported here. I have to import those in here, okay? I am going to say constant the information that we need to import, and this will be get draw timer and store time, okay? And this will be equals to what? Require, and we are going to define that interface file as the location for those two functions. Beautiful. We just imported those functions. Now we can use those functions here. I am going to build now a function to do the automation piece. We're going to say runtime, okay, equals async. And let's go ahead and define everything. We're just going to say async, and let's make this happen. Now the first thing I'm going to say, I am going to say response. I'm going to expect the response from get draw timer so that I can know how much time is left in the draw. I'm going to say response, it's equal to await get draw timer. Oops, get draw timer. Beautiful. So from here, we should obtain from Mongo database the current reading of that time. Once we get that response, then we have to determine, and by the way, the response is not going to give us the value cleaned up. It's going to give us an answer that we need to parse and get the specific attribute, in this case, the time itself. So I have to store time left. I'm going to declare another let in the call, and this call is going to say response.document. This is what Mongo database is going to send us back, okay? And then the value is going to be time. That's what we want to store here, okay? And with that said, I am going to make sure that this runs, and then we'll continue. So what I should expect, let me do a console log, and let's call this time left, okay? And now I have to bring this onto the server, so the moment I run the backend, this executes, okay? So I am going to just place it right below here. I'm going to say run timer. And boom, you can see now that it's turned on, okay? And that tells me that the configuration to Mongo database is good. We're getting the reading, so we know that we're 100% there, okay? Okay, let's go ahead and give it a shot, and let's see. Beautiful, we got 0. 0 means it's the information that we have stored from, we got from Mongo database. So we're 100% good. Beautiful, awesome. So let's stop it. Okay, now with that said, now I have to say the following. If, right, time left, it's less equal to 0 to this, else to this, okay? Let's think about this for a minute. I have to make sure that this runs on a loop, which means that I am going to be constantly checking every single second that that time left is still higher than 0, so I don't execute the function to close everything, right? So which means that I have to wrap this entire function or this entire if-else statement and wrap that in an interval, which means that at certain interval, you're going to continue checking. If time left is less equal 0, then do this. Else, subtract 1 second and go ahead and do it again and go ahead and do it again. It's basically a loop until this is all the way, goes all the way to 0. So the value, we have to constantly lower the value. Check this out. With that said, I have to do the following. I'm going to declare, I'm going to say set interval. Okay. And we are going to say function. And we are going to wrap our function inside here. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab this, I'm going to cut it, and we are going to paste this right here. So then we're wrapping the entire section in this particular set interval. I'm going to go ahead and right click. I'm going to format it and looking good. Okay, awesome. With that said, I have this space that I can define something and this space that I can define something. But now in this set interval, I got to specify how often do you want to loop this, right? And by default, the value is going to be in milliseconds. So we are going to define 1000, which is 1 second. Every second, I am going to be checking here and executing something, okay? But it doesn't end there, right? If time left is less equal to 0, what I want you to do, I am going to say console log closing draw, okay? Once that's done, I need you to update the time so then you start all over again. Check this out. I am going to declare the following. I am going to create another let, and let's call this draw reset. Okay? We're going to define how long do we want to do the draw? How long do we think the draw is going to last? And this will be placed here in milliseconds. So let's say I want to run the draw for a minute. I need to type 60,000, and that will be in milliseconds. So that's a minute because it's 60 seconds in milliseconds, okay? So if we assume that this is going to run every minute, then we have to make sure that we set that value. And not only that, we have to send to Mongo database this new value so then the counter starts all over again, okay? So what I'm going to do, now I'm going to store time. Remember that function that we wrote in the beginning? Store time, and we're going to say draw reset. Boom. So the moment I do that, I am effectively sending 60,000 to Mongo database using here the time left value. So I'm passing that into the store time. Okay, beautiful. So once we do that, we will update Mongo database with 60,000. And that will be an example if you want to run the draw for a minute. But obviously, we're not going to do that in production. We definitely want to run it for like 24 hours, right? And then you just need to identify how much is 24 hours in milliseconds right here, okay? Else, if this is still higher than 0, if time left is higher than 0, then I want you to subtract to decrease time left by 1 second. So then we're continuing lowering the time, okay? Check this out. I am going to say time left minus equals to 1,000, or in this case, 1,000 milliseconds or 1 second. So this is effectively lowering the time left by 1 second. And guess what? I have to send that to Mongo database so then it gets written, okay? We're going to say time left. Alrighty, cool. And if I type a console log and let's say still running, we're just going to see every second still running, still running, still running until it goes to closing draw, which means that the entire 60 seconds are over, right? Or I can say the timer here. I can define time left, right? And then it's just going to show us the countdown, okay? So let me go ahead and do that. I'm going to show you how that looks like. And I'm going to just remove this. We no longer need this here. And we should see this entire counter and you know, going and closing and then starting all over. right? Because we're doing this every second and there's no clear interval, which means that I am not stopping this at all. This is just going to continue every second without stopping, okay? So let me go ahead and Control S and let's give it a shot one more time. CLS, and let's run it. There we go, closing draw. You know what I forgot? I forgot that I still need to make sure that I reset the counter so then this function does not continue telling that the time left. So check this out. If time left is not updated to be 60,000, it's just gonna get stuck here. And that's what we saw, okay? So what I gotta do, I am going to say time left. And then that's gonna be equal to what? It's gonna be equals to draw reset, which means now the moment this happens, it's going to go back and it's going to say, oh, 60,000. That means that I am not done yet. So I have to continue here until I decrease everything all the way to 0. Okay. So let's go ahead and Control S and let's take a look again. Okay. Let me go ahead and rerun it. Okay. And we should see everything working as expected. Let's go. Closing draw. Boom. Okay. Now we should see the counter. Once it gets all the way to 0, we should see once again a closing draw. And that tells us that we have that variation going on just fine. Okay, let's just wait for that. Alrighty, it's almost done. It's almost done. We can see it right there. Okay, here he goes. We should see, once it runs out, we should see closing draw once again. And then the timer starts all over again. There he goes. Boom. Beautiful. We started once again. Awesome. So we now know that the timer is working as expected. Awesome. So, okay, so let me go ahead and stop this and let's now build a function that is just going to do the entire magic. Okay. Pay attention. Okay, so let's do it right below here. We're going to call this a function and the function is going to be execute Lotto. So as a matter of fact, let's do it to expedite time. I'm just going to copy and paste and I'm just going to go briefly over it. Okay. Execute Lotto. Where do you think I need to place this function so then it gets called? Obviously, when the time runs out. That's where we're going to start closing everything, okay? So with that said, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to place this here. As a matter of fact, you know what? Let's just finish the function and we'll do it at the end, okay? First thing I'm going to do, I am going to specify that we're closing. And as a matter of fact, I got some ASCII art that I want to use so then it looks more visually appealing. I'm gonna add this right here. Let me add this right below here. Beautiful. Okay, so we're just gonna add this, you know, closing draw numbers, and so that we know where the script is going. Okay, and to the Lotto, net to def. So let me add those two logos in the boot up of the server of the backend. So console log and to the logo. No, let me see, logo right here. And then the second one is going to be console log and to the Lotto. Okay, awesome. So we know that, you know, this is just going to run just fine. Awesome. All right, so we are going to execute the Lotto. So the first thing I got to do, I am going to say in console, you know, I'm just going to say closing, right? So we're going to close the Lotto. And I'm just going to leave some space. So I'm going to say console log just to make sure that we have a gap. Okay. Just add this. And then I'm just going to copy it. We'll do it again. Cool. Awesome. And now this is the catch right here. I have to write the first function that is going to close the draw. So we haven't done functions yet. So what I'm going to do instead, I am going to open the first function after closing. So the first function to close, we are not going to set a timeout. It's just the moment this gets called right here, it's just going to close the draw right away. But then after it closes the draw, I have to wait a little bit of time so that I can get the information from Chainlink. The smart contract gets all that information. So then we can draw the numbers, okay? Because remember, if you do this automatically without waiting, you're gonna fail because Chainlink hasn't provided the draw numbers, the random numbers to the smart contract. So we have to wait for that. So instead, what I'm gonna do, I am going to await a minute. So then we can know for a fact that we obtained the information from Chainlink, and then we can continue executing, okay? So with that, I have to type set timeout, right? And then we are going to wrap the function inside there. So I'm gonna say function, right? And we will specify, by the way, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna take advantage of this, right? And what I'm gonna do, I am going to say now draw numbers, okay? And draw num, okay? So let's just type it here. Cool, awesome. But I have to specify how long do I wait between closing and drawing the numbers. And this is where we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it inside the set timeout function, right? We have to specify here. We're gonna do a comma. Remember, it's very similar to set interval. And what we're going to do, we're gonna do 60,000, okay? That will be 1 minute. Cool, but here's the thing. I have to make sure that when I finish this execution, and the difference is, by the way, the difference between set interval and set timeout is that interval never ends. Timeout, it's only once. So it only runs that execution once, but then at this interval. So the moment this timer runs out, then I go ahead and execute that function, okay? But here's the thing. I need to be able to run the next function after this function finishes. I cannot say set timeout and that set timeout below, because what's going to happen is the following. Remember, everything in the function is synchronous, which means that not only I'm going to execute this, sure enough, it's going to wait 60 seconds, right? But if I decide to put the next call like this, what's going to happen is going to run this 60 seconds, but it's also going to run this 60 seconds, right? So it's instead of waiting for this to finish, so then it can start running this, it's going to run both of them at the same time. You don't want that. You want to make sure that you wait for this one to finish so that you can go out and run this. You see where I'm going, right? So what do we need to do? We have to wrap this 2 functions, as a matter of fact, 3 functions in a different interval, okay? Check this out. This is tricky, okay? So what I'm going to do to make it simpler for you to understand, I'm going to delete this and I'm going to say set timeout. I am going to put this at the end here, right? Remember, we are wrapping it inside this set timeout, okay? You see where I'm going? And inside here, we are wrapping another one, okay? Check this out. We're going to wrap a 3rd one to count the winners. And finally, open the new draw. What's going to happen now? This set timeout is going to execute, which then once it's done, it executes this one below. Then once it's done, but guess what? This is going to execute 60 seconds, okay? And then it executes this, but this one is going to wait 60 seconds before executing this. You see where I'm going? And you have to be in that sequence, and you cannot just place them in that same order because they will all execute at the same time. You're not going to have the information available, okay? So with that said, I am going to be drawing the numbers on this, okay? And then below here, I am going to get the winning numbers or count winners, okay? So where is it? Drawing numbers, and we will get the winners, okay? So get winners will be stored inside here. So let me just take advantage of this. There you go. And let's type winners. Okay, so this is the function that is going to close. This one will be closed the moment I run out of time. It's just going to execute this entire function. It's going to close the draw into the smart contract, but then it's going to go into this function, but it's going to wait 60 seconds before it hits the draw number function, right? Which means that I already should obtain the random numbers from Chainlink. Once this is done, then it starts executing this function, but this function is going to wait 60 seconds before executing. Once this is done, then this one starts executing, which is what's going to do. It's going to open a new draw, okay? Check this out. We're just going to grab this once again. We're going to copy and paste it right below here, okay? And I should be done, okay? So once we're done with this, I'm going to say, close the bracket, and that will be the magic function to do everything automated, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and format this selection so it looks clean, but then this console log, we are just going to replace that with open, okay? There you have it. Basically, this is what's the magic behind. This is gonna open, but remember, every function, this function, it starts from the bottom. So the first function, which is this one right here, is going to be executed after 60 seconds. Then this function is going to be executed after 60 seconds. Then finally, this function after 60 seconds, okay? And what I have to do, I have to then continue checking here. This, remember, because this is set interval, this is not going to end. This is just going to continue, okay? Beautiful. Now I have to bring this function, right? And we are going to copy this, and we will paste this below this one right here before closing draw. So it just goes right away and executes this entire call, okay? And then it proceeds to reset the timer and store time, okay? So when let's say you add 24 hours into the draw, right? You need to give a little bit of overhead so then this completes, right? So if you have 3 minutes here, right, to complete this entire call, so then you can open the new draw, you have to make sure that whatever value you set for 24 hours, you add those 3 minutes, or at least add 4 minutes extra, okay? So then it can go over everything and then it can start the new counter, okay? Just food for thought, okay? So what I'm gonna do, instead of me waiting 1 minute, because I wanna do a quick demonstration real quick here, right? I am going to put 5 seconds between each one, and the draw reset is just gonna be 10 seconds instead of 60. So then we see this right away. You know what, let me do 20 seconds because it's gonna be super fast. I'm gonna Control S, and yeah, let's go ahead and rerun this entire call. And it should still have values from the last draw, so that's fine. Let's see. Now you can see now it's way different. And now you can see the counter. So let's wait for this, and now you should start seeing everything running there. And the only thing that we have to do now is add the functions to the smart contract, and we'll test this live, okay? Okay, it's almost done. And we can see that. We should start seeing now the entire backend functions, okay? Closing draw. And we saw 20. It resetted the counter to 20, drawing numbers. It's a little bit off, but it's because of the whole console thing. There you go. Awesome. Getting numbers. It's continuing. There we go. Open Lotto. And once it starts, boom, we should see the counter resetting and going back again. Okay? Awesome. So we know that everything is working as expected. Beautiful. And obviously, you can see this very fast because I am just putting 5 seconds between each one, okay? But now we should be able to do it the right way. Beautiful. We have the backend functionality completely automated, okay? Now we have to add the functions to do the calls to the smart contract. We'll deploy a smart contract and we'll test, okay? So let me go ahead and stop this. Beautiful. Beautiful, okay? Okay, awesome. So we got this all nice and groovy. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go very quick on this. Okay, so let me go ahead and paste this entire thing. So what you can see right here is the entire call for EthersJS to do the calls to the smart contract and close the draw and do everything, okay? So what I got to do now, I got to import EthersJS because we're going to be using Ethers here. And obviously, we have to import the API because remember, we are going to be interacting with the smart contract, which means that I have to import the API from the smart contract. So let's go ahead and head to Remix and create the API file right here. Let's go ahead and I'm going to create the file. Let's call this Lottery API JSON, okay? And let me go to Remix and get the information, okay? So I'm just going to go here. I'm going to Control S and compile the contract. Beautiful. So now I should be able to click right here. If you don't see it, now you can. API. Copy it. Let's go back. And let me go ahead and paste it right here. Beautiful. Control S, and we have the API imported. And now, because we have the Lottery Smart Contract, I have the wallet, I have the provider, which in this case, I'm deploying this in RPC. The key is the private key of the deployer wallet. So the wallet that we use to deploy the smart contract, I have to import the private key because that's the key that is going to be allowed to make those calls and close the draws and draw numbers and count the winners and all that. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. I am going to now create a constant called contract to call the Lotto smart contract. Okay, contract, and basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to invoke ethers contract lottery and lottery API. Okay, because we haven't imported lottery API, so let's do that. Constant lottery API equals require and require, and we're going to say the Lotto file, Lotto API JSON. Control S, and now we should be good. And then my wallet. Cool. Now I have the contract, which I can use that to make calls into the blockchain. Let me show you how do we do one call, which is very straightforward. What I got to do here, I am going to build a function to open the Lotto. Okay, and this is the function that is just going to call that to the smart contract. Okay, the first function, open Lotto, async. Inside here, we are going to await what? We're going to await the contract, which is basically what we declare it right here. Contract, it's creating a new ethers contract statement, lottery API, and wallet. So it's pointing to the Lotto smart contract. This is the API file, and this is the wallet that is allowed to perform calls to the smart contract or to execute those functions. Okay, let's go back down. And what's the function that we need to call in order for us to open the Lotto? Open lottery, and this is exactly how it's defined in the smart contract itself. Okay, and to make it even faster, I'm going to just go here, copy, and then once this is done, I want to do something, right? I am going to say the following. I am going to say then result, whatever you obtain, just log that is complete and return to me complete, so then I can pass that into the function and I know 100% that we were successful, okay? That everything went well. Cool. So let me go ahead and open Lotto and let me go and format this. Cool. So now, guess what? The other functions are literally the same. All I have to do is modify some things. And this is to close the Lotto, okay? And open Lotto, so that's open Lotto. This will be closed Lotto. We have to draw the numbers, okay? And finally, we are going to count the winners, okay? Now I have to update this, right? Instead of open lottery, it's going to be closed Lotto. If you want to know, by the way, what the function name is, let's go to the smart contract and let's find that function name. Open lottery, we already created that function. And we are going to close lottery. So we have to make sure that we just follow the same. Let's just copy this and let's go back. Close Lotto. Boom, close lottery. Beautiful. Now draw numbers. Let's just make sure that it's the same. Draw numbers. Copy. Draw numbers here. Paste. Okay. And count winners. So this will be, I believe it's the same. Count winners. There we go. Beautiful. And let's go back. Count winners. Okay, so we have everything. Okay, we have all the functions that we need to do in order for us to open and close draws. Beautiful. Now the final step that we have to do is we have to import that back into the backend file. Remember, this is the interfaces file. And we have to import that into the backend file. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna open those. I'm gonna import those here. Open Lotto, close Lotto, draw numbers, and count winners. Oops, count winners. There we go. And that should be it. Okay, let me go into the backend, and we're going to make sure that we're importing this here. Just gonna comma and press enter so that I can continue right here. And we're gonna say open Lotto, and we're gonna say close Lotto, draw numbers, and count winners. Okay, let me just bring it there. And beautiful, done here. Now I have to bring those functions inside the automator function right here, okay? So we are done here. So this has to be placed in the execute Lotto function right here. So the first function that I have to invoke is to close, because remember, when the time runs out, we're going to close the Lotto. So I'm just going to type here or paste close Lotto. Beautiful. Now the next function, draw numbers. Let's go ahead and do that. Draw numbers. Okay. And we are almost done. Beautiful. Next, count winners. Let's count the winners. And finally, we're just going to open a new Lotto draw. Beautiful. Okay, we are done. We are definitely done. Now, I have to be conscious of this entire execution. I cannot leave this in 5 seconds because everything will fail. 5 seconds is not enough to get all the information from Chainlink and all that. So to be safe, I'm just going to put that 60 for each one. And I'm going to go ahead and Control S, but then also I have to make sure that I put enough time here. So in this case, I am going to make sure that I place 300,000 is 5 minutes. So let me just set 5 minutes. As a matter of fact, let me do, 5 minutes. There you go. That will be 5 minutes in milliseconds, 300,000. And Control S. I have to go back and Mongo database and make sure that I can reset that back to 0. So I'm just going to do that right now. And we're done. We're definitely done here. Okay, done. Final step, I have to deploy a smart contract, and we have to add the smart contract onto the backend. Okay, so let me go ahead and on the Remix, I am going to deploy a brand new smart contract, but I have to import the Lotto, the tokens, right? The token smart contract. And we already went through this on the last video. I'm just gonna copy the address, okay? And we're gonna go here, and I have to make sure that I'm going to set myself with my wallet. And let's go under pay token address. And I have to make sure that I also provide the Chainlink VRF subscription ID. So let me go into VRF Chainlink page. And if we zoom in, you can see my subscription is right here, 3283. Okay, so let's go back here, 3283. Let me go ahead and transact. We should get the prompt. We're going to pay, and we're deploying the smart contract. Then the next thing that I have to do, I got the confirmation. Now I am going to copy the Lotto address, and we have to add the address as a consumer, as you know. Boom, add the consumer. I should get the prompt, confirm. Now I have to also add the address into the backend, okay? So check this out. Let's go back to interfaces, and there's a function here, a constant called lottery. And this will be the new contract address. The moment I run the backend, everything should start running. Here's the thing. Because this is a brand new contract, we haven't opened a Lotto, which means that it probably is going to show errors at the first try, but then it's going to start working, right? Because we haven't opened any draws yet. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to Control S and cross fingers, okay? And it's saying API map function. Let's see what's that about. Oh, you know what? I think this is not wrapped. Yeah, this is not wrapped. So this is wrong right here. There we go. Beautiful. And let me go back and Control S, CLS, and let's give it a shot once again. Beautiful. Okay, let's see. It should arrow out. Oh, and we left the counter, but that's fine. And you can see error calling function because we haven't closed any draw. We haven't closed any draw, okay? So I am going to skip, so then we don't have to wait the minute for each call. but I'm going to be showing you what it's going to be displaying. But you see error calling, we haven't opened a draw, so that is expected. And we're done. We're definitely done here. Okay, getting winners. I know it's going to error because, again, actually, it said complete. That's interesting. There's nothing. Like, there should not be any information, okay? But, hey, there you go. Opened. Awesome. Okay. And there you go. We have completed this amazing backend. What we're going to do in the last video, we are going to be building both front ends. It's going to be the client front end, and we are going to be building the admin portal front end. And we have to go back into the backend to add additional functions to buy tickets and you know, to claim prices and such, because those functions cannot be interact directly in the front end. But we'll make that happen, okay? Alrighty. Alrighty. So that's it for this video. On the next video, we are finishing the backend functions so then we can build the front end. The front end, it's going to interact with the backend API gateway, or in this case, the backend API functions that we are going to finish up building. And we'll build the entire front end, and we can call ourselves the winners of this lottery game, okay? We're gonna be finishing the entire application on the last video, okay? All right, that's it for this video. I hope that you enjoyed my tutorial. And if you do me a favor, hit the thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't subscribed to, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.